Jimbo said yesterday that at some point while you were in Tuscaloosa, he was going to beat your butt. That wasn't the word that he used, but did you have any response for that?
In golf?
I think he meant on the football field.
Well, I'm sure there'll come a day, you know.
Let's go! Right here in the middle of the damn field! Let's bring it down, Tigers on 3!
Hell yeah!
Because this is our house from now on!
Yes, sir!
Tigers on 3! 1, 2, 3, Tigers!
But I'm going to tell you this, we ain't done yet.
I got to ask you about the message on your shirt.
My favorite holiday of the year, I guess, and, so just, someone gave me a shirt, and Merry Christmas, they spelled it wrong, so, it was free.
Coach, it's a great day for you, huh?
That's it's better than average, I'll tell you that. We played LSU because, New England, Green Bay, and the Chiefs had somebody scheduled.
You know what we're going to do, though? We've got to quickly call the Hogs for the race back. Big Tom! Turn that
The fact you're dressed as Darth Vader, do you feel like you were somewhat of a villain in this fight? I mean, you charged out on the field pretty hard.
I'm trying to get our players off the field, because I know we have a big game next week.
All I want to do is fucking eat! I want you to eat! I want you to eat! I want you to want this shit! Do you want it? Do you want it? Show me!
Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm flying solo for this episode, but don't worry, got a terrific show lined up. Got several SEC teams we're going to hit on when we go around the league, but before we get to that, we like to start with something funny if we can, and man, we got something for you here. This comes courtesy new Twitter account I just found. It's pretty great. It's called Message Board Geniuses. And this comes via a Kansas message board. This is great. Let's give this guy a shout out. Love That Blues, the username. And here's his message he had on the message board here. I know it's not a cultural fit, but if push comes to shove and we never receive that invitation to the Big Ten, we might have an outside shot of sliding into the SEC. With Oklahoma and Texas in the mix and Missouri already on board, it makes sense more now than ever to have Kentucky, Kansas in the basketball side, and it would make it the premier basketball conference as well as football. And then at the very end here, this is the best part. It's not my ideal choice, but I'd much rather land in the SEC if we don't get into the Big Ten than suck it up and go to the P4 fallback conference. So the SEC is a fallback plan for Kansas fans. I just thought that was fantastic, as if they had a shot in hell at ever getting into the SEC. But hey, that we had to start with that, and that's not the only thing that I saw. It was pretty interesting. So this new Kentucky quarterback, Will Levis, he kind of going viral here because apparently he eats a banana like a psychopath. Check it out. I got to be honest, this is the first time I've ever seen a man eat a banana peel. But that's what you're getting in your new Kentucky quarterback. But, of course, that's not all they're getting. This is a clip. Kentucky shared this to their official football account, so I think we're cleared to share it. But we can't play the music. But Will Levis to Wan'Dale Robinson in a recent practice there in Lexington. Well, if Levis has got a natural connection with Wan'Dale Robinson, it's no surprise to see that he's been named the starting quarterback there in Lexington. And I know it's just camp, it's just preseason, but the hype is growing for Kentucky now that we got our guy. I think you got to feel a lot better about your team moving forward. He's going to get all the first team reps. And hey, we're all aboard the Levis train. So I plan on doing a deep dive and watching all this guy's games from his time at Penn State, try to get a better feel for what Kentucky's getting in Will Levis. But that'll be yet to come. We've got a lot of news, so let's kick it around the league.
Now let's go around the league.
My daughters said something about me wearing a visor and need to put on a hat because I'm getting bald. So I'm going to wear a hat from here on out.
I mean, if you look over the next 6 years, I think we played Miami 3 times, Florida State 6 times, South Florida 3 times, Mississippi State once. So who's the SEC teams? You know, I mean, I think it's an injustice for the kids. We should mix those games up, and you should, play more teams from the West.
Why don't you start calling around and see if you can get somebody else to play us, and we'll play them. We'll play anybody you can get to play us.
At Louisiana, hold on a second. Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you.
All right, let's start here in Missouri, where apparently it's Toughness Week. According to Eli Drinkwitz, 6 days in a row of practice and getting some bangs and bruises up there. Some unfortunate news. Everyone's waiting to see what Mookie Cooper does for the Tigers. Well, he's going to be sidelined for the next 10 to 14 days, maybe a little bit longer. And Jalen Macklin, the brother of course, Jeremy Macklin, the legend there at Missouri, little banged up. So let's kick it over to Eli Drinkwitz, who met with the media here on Monday.
We're finishing Toughness Week, what we call Toughness Week, 6 straight days of practice. Couldn't be any more proud of how our team responded to the challenge that our coaches put in front of them.
I didn't see Mookie or Jay Macklin maybe out there when we were out there.
Yeah, Emory Macklin suffered a fracture of the orbital bone. It will be out 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a little bit sooner. Mookie's got a lower leg injury. Don't know a timetable on that. Could be anywhere from 10 days to 14 days. Just depends on how he responds to treatment, how his body responds. Obviously, with a speed guy like that, it could be a little bit. It's really going to come on him with pain tolerance. Both those guys have a really good grasp of the offense, and so we anticipate, being positive. We're hoping that the game week they'll be ready to roll. Don't know that, but that's kind of our mindset.
All right, but that wasn't the only update from Missouri, who's now 10 days into training camp here. And I thought Coach was asked about just the difference between last season and this year. Going into last season, the narrative, and we pretty much all had it. Revisionist history, we forget the takes we had, but these first-year coaches going into a 10-game SEC slate, we thought it was just a hope and a prayer for hardly any of these teams to win. Yet Drinkwitz and Pittman, Kiffin, even Leach, they all had success last season. So it's going to be fascinating to see what these guys do in year 2 after their first spring, after having a full off season of conditioning. And that's something that Eli Drinkwitz is excited about himself.
Your first full off season, without a lot of limitations from last off season, what sort of extra strides you have to make this time around?
Well, I think having the full off season and the summer conditioning without restrictions was big. Last year everything was technically voluntary throughout the summer until I think July 15th. We didn't, once they left for spring break, they weren't back until I think it was June 6th on a voluntary basis. And so you're missing a lot of training, and that training is an everyday consistency of approach. They know what the standards are that we're setting and what they have to be and what they have to meet every day. And without that, you just don't have it. You don't know what to expect. I think they know what to expect now. I think they know what their process has to be in order to be successful here and what we're demanding of them on a daily basis.
So like I said before playing that clip, so many first-year coaches last year in the SEC made an instant impact. Now we find out how well these guys transition into year 2. And, just based on what we saw in 2020, I think I got to be feeling pretty confident if I'm a Missouri, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or Arkansas fan based on what those coaches brought to their programs last season. All right, well, sticking on that theme, let's kick it on down to Mississippi State. Man, I hate to, I sound like a broken record here, but we got some bad news because defensive end Jordan Davis suffered an injury recently during practice. No firm details on what that could be, but I was told he was carted off the field. And if you recall, I think the last time we played a clip from Mike Leach, he was asked who's standing out during recent practice, and the first guy he named was Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is a guy that former Alabama commit. I believe he even signed with the Crimson Tide before he had to go to the junior college route. So very, very talented player. Let's hope for Mississippi State's sake that he's not injured for very long. But as soon as we get confirmation on that, we'll share that with you. But that's not all we got from Mississippi State, because following the first scrimmage there of training camp, Mike Leach recently met with the media, talked about Will Rogers. And, the big thing there, it's easy to focus on the quarterback competition, but for that offense, that Mississippi State offense, it's all about the offensive line to me. Some kind of less than encouraging comments, I thought, from Mike Leach on that angle. So let's kick it over to him.
I thought it was productive. I thought it was aggressive. I thought it was competitive the whole time. Both sides have plenty to be pissed about, so that typically means you had a pretty good scrimmage. I think that I would have liked to see us finish on the goal line a couple of those times. I thought, though, but we got off the hook. Defense let us off the hook a couple times on some 3rd and long. So I still think, we're not as consistent as we want to be. But we do have an explosive quality with the sacks and some of the explosive plays.
Your thoughts on Will Rogers today and how he directed the
a little up and down. I thought several times really good. Then we had some drop balls, which or sacks that cost the whole unit. Collectively, I thought he did pretty good, but definitely there's a play or two he wants back. He took care of the ball, but I'd like him to find his way out of some of those sacks, his own self, not just the O-line. Obviously, the protection was suspect there. I think some of these guys got to get tougher. Some of them may think they're better than they are, so we got to get that out of them.
You're about 3 weeks away from the first game. How close to game ready do you feel your squad is?
Oh, I don't think we're ready yet. I'm very glad we got 3 weeks or whatever it adds up to. I don't think we're ready yet.
Leach is for as fun and quirky and all that as he is, he's a disciplinarian. He's a tough guy. At least that's the way that I understand how he coaches his team. So maybe he's just trying to get his offensive line up to the caliber he expects them to be. But, because based on these comments, when you're asked about the quarterback and your mind quickly goes to the offensive line, that was the big issue there in Starkville last season. So got to get that group going there at Mississippi State. But hey, before we leave Mississippi State, we do have a positive note. Well, half positive, half bad. He was asked about the tackling, and again, Coach Leach's mind wanders to somewhere else. He hits on the running backs that Mississippi State's got here.
How did you like tackling went today?
I thought it went pretty good. I'd have to go back and look at the film. I thought it went pretty good. There were a couple plays that looked to me like we kind of got out of. In a few cases, I think our running backs, when they get their pads moving forward, they're tough to bring down. So, just evaluating what portion is the running back doing a really good job or, the defender, not getting it done as quickly as we'd like.
All right, so I really wanted to play this clip because, I know Mississippi State fans are well aware, but I don't know if the rest of the SEC really knows the tandem here that the Bulldogs got in Dylan Johnson and Jaquavian Marks, two very talented backs last season, freshmen, both of them, now sophomores. They didn't rush for a ton, 537 yards and 7 touchdowns combined. But here's where they were really effective, as you would have imagined in a Mike Leach system, 96 catches for the pair and for 553 yards receiving. So Mississippi State's got two studs back there. You really got to like the pieces once you start digging more and more into what Mississippi State's got to work with, one of the youngest teams in all of college football last season. They're probably still going to be that way with guys like Wally and Rogers and Johnson and Marks, all going into their sophomore season. So there's a lot to like about Mississippi State's offense, what we saw last year. But I think the key, and it's something that kind of Leach is talking about here, is going to be the consistency. Because that's what you get with young, talented players, sometimes not always as consistent. And that certainly was an issue with Mississippi State in year one of the Mike Leach era. Now that they've had all these additional reps and all these camps and all these practices, you certainly got to believe that's going to improve this year on the field for Mississippi State. And it better, because they got I wouldn't say, a schedule that they can't conquer here early on, but it's tough. I mean, Memphis, NC State, these are not layup games. Louisiana Tech in the opener, not. Skip Holtz is a really good coach. So if they show up with their C game in any of these, they're going to be tested. So Mississippi State's got to be coming out firing on all cylinders. And hell, if we learned anything from Mike Leach's time in the SEC, his team will be ready to go week one. All right, sticking in the state of Mississippi, let's kick it all down to Oxford. And if you missed it last week, maybe go back. Well, hell, maybe I may delete it before you have an opportunity. But I was singing the praises of the Ole Miss defense. Lakia Henry came out and said, hey, this unit could be the best in the SEC, could be the best in the country. And I knew he was going to get mocked by some for those comments. But there's plenty of reason for optimism. When you consider all the transfers, all the super seniors coming back. They do have talent on that Ole Miss defense, make no mistake. Clearly it didn't really matter last year. They were so god-awful. But, with so many of those guys back, with the coaching staff intact, the continuity returning, with the experience returning for that Ole Miss defense, you got to assume they're going to get better. But according to Lane Kiffin, my God, the guy could barely hold up his head here in his most recent press conference, asked about most recent scrimmage there at the first scrimmage of training camp in Oxford, and he was very disappointed in his defense. So let's kick it over to Kiffin.
Lane, I know you've had little time to assess the situation, but just your kind of off-the-cuff feelings about what you watched this morning.
You're right, obviously. We just walked off. Haven't watched the film, but, impressed with the first offense, running and passing. Not impressed with the defense. So, it always happens when you're scrimmaging yourself. If one side does good, you walk off saying, okay, well, are we good or on that side, or are we bad on the other side? So, we'll go watch the film. We played a lot of players today, 1s, 2s, 3s, a lot of reps for new guys. So hopefully we'll learn some stuff off this film.
Like you said, you haven't had time to really look at, assess the whole situation. But was there anything that kind of stuck out defensively that was problematic?
Yeah, poor tackling. You make excuses and say first scrimmage, but still got to tackle. We worked on it yesterday. And came out and didn't tackle very well. And, which is discouraging because, we had a number of receivers that, were banged up. So they were playing, but weren't able to be tackled. So a lot of it was just the running backs and, 1s, 2s, and 3s missed tackles between the linebackers and the secondary. So, a lot to learn.
Obviously, there were a lot of rotating bodies and whatnot, but it looked like there were kind of 3 series of top offense versus top defense. And the defense looked like it had a little bit of success there. Would you say that was accurate, at least on that front?
Yeah, I thought in the second half, defense did a little bit better. Now the second half was not tackle, so, that helps. But it did seem better. It was very frustrating first quarter. Defensively, especially to give up explosive plays like we did.
Lane, can you just give us an overall assessment of 1 week of fall camp? Are you where you thought you'd be, where you want to be?
I think the concern is what happened today, with the offense looking really good and the defense not. And, again, it's good and bad. You don't know. You're playing yourself. So, it's a little frustrating on the defensive side, but you never know. this time a year ago in the fall scrimmages, we couldn't make a first down with our first offense with Elijah, and our defense stopped our offense all the time. So, and then I guess we're the only, some interview in their interview said we're the only team in America to give up 40 and score 40, you know, as an average last season. So we obviously want to fix that.
So this is not me cherry picking comments here. This is not a very long press conference, but essentially I'd say about 75% of it was dedicated to his disappointment in his defense. So something's got to give. But, of course, as Kiffin notes, maybe they've got the best offense in the nation. I mean, I don't think that is going to be a stretch to look into what Ole Miss did last year, what they bring back. I know Elijah Moore and Royce Newman off to the NFL, but beyond those two, I mean, everybody's back. And they landed Jalen Knox from Missouri, the transfer. So, I mean, they are going to be loaded on that side of the ball, but you know, this is cause for concern a little bit here with Kiffin dogging his defense here. But I will say maybe he's got a little bit of, really good poker face, because I remember this time last year, he was basically beside himself saying, you know, I don't know how we're going to compete. I don't even know how we're going to field a team. I was so down on Ole Miss based on a lot of the comments Kiffin had shared during the offseason leading up to his first season there in Oxford, and we all know what happened. I mean, they were lights out on that offensive side of the ball from the get-go. So, again, and you don't never read too much into one scrimmage. Maybe the defense, I think more than anything what this tells me is, you know, maybe what Lakia Henry, you know, not saying that Ole Miss was going to have the best defense in the SEC, but maybe they were impressing in practice leading up to this scrimmage, setting the expectations much higher for Kiffin and company, and then here they drop an egg in scrimmage. I think more that's probably what we're getting here, and that's probably why Kiffin was so disappointed in the performance of his defense. All right, sticking in the SEC West, let's jump to the state of Alabama, where Auburn's first scrimmage over the weekend took place, and Bryan Harsin and company got that thing rolling. And, you know, again, he's a tough one to pick comments from, because he only fielded about 4 or 5 questions, and that took about 30 minutes for him to answer them, as we saw at SEC Media Days. What I think he fielded 3 questions at the main podium, but one of the keys there, the offensive line, that's something that under Mike Bobo and Will Friend, Auburn fans anxious to see how this unit, that's one that Gus Malzahn, you know, for all his better points, offensive line recruiting and development ain't one of them. So they've got, I wouldn't say a mess on their hands, because they do return plenty of experience. But the offensive line is going to be critical, considering the fact that, we all know Bo Nix, how inconsistent he can be. And you got to assume that the offense is going to run through Tank Bigsby. But that ain't going to work if the offensive line doesn't hold up, doesn't come together. So Bryan Harsin shared his thoughts on what he's seeing from his offensive line.
Hey, Brian, obviously you talk about the front seven on defense seemingly having a decent night. How do you then evaluate the offensive line play? Obviously that's a big focus. How did they do in your eyes?
Yeah, solid at times. I think this, a little inconsistent. I stand back and just know my vantage point here. I stand back behind the offense, and I get to see the quarterback. I get to watch the O-line. I get to watch the protection in the backs. And so, I kind of see every little thing, and I'm pretty critical of that group. They did move the ball. We ran the ball. They did come off the ball. They did strike. We missed some blocks in there. We just flat out missed them. It wasn't, and it was really just, we got to communicate it. So those things, we have to correct. A couple penalties that we had, some false starts that, we'll get corrected. We need to address and continue that moving forward, and they'll see that. But overall, there were some good things that they did better in pass protection. I thought we were able to run the ball and get downhill in the scrimmage, so there was some positive that way. And, I think for the O-line, it's always about consistency. When you've got the D-line right up in your face and you've got guys trying to get off and penetrate, like we're going to see, you got to be really, really good up front. And I think our O-line is improved. Now, as we move forward, it's got to be the consistency from those guys up front, that we have got to handle our assignments, and we've got to make sure that we're on the right people, and then just being physical. At the end of the day, just being physical. We got to come off. We got to strike, and we've got to be able to move the line of scrimmage to be able to run the ball the way we want to, and we did that at times. We want to be more consistent up front. So we've improved, but we're not where we need to be, and our guys know that. And I think that's the best thing about that group right now is they're willing to work. I do like that about that group. And so this next week, we still have time to keep improving, and I expect as we get in that second scrimmage that we'll make those corrections and we'll be better up front, and we'll have that consistency that we're looking for.
All right, and in addition to those comments, Harsin also talked about the quarterbacks. And, he didn't really give any individual keys or notes here at all, but he was asked about a 2-quarterback system. And, again, he's kind of coy. He's playing it coy, but he said he's done that before. He's not afraid to do it. So what does that tell you? I don't know about Bo Nix and how he's performing. Or maybe just TJ Finley's looking that good. Let's kick it over to Bryan Harsin one more time on the quarterbacks.
Ryan Hennessy.
Coach, so far through, you said eight practices, the progression of the quarterback you kind of talked about already, but a lot of fans are wondering what this Bryan Harsin offense is going to look like. Is there an opportunity where you would have 2 quarterbacks playing on September 4th, or are you kind of sticking to one guy by the end of this with the depth chart?
Yeah, well, come September 4th, I've done that before, so that's not out of possibilities. And let's be clear, that's not what we're working towards right now. I mean, right now we're developing each quarterback to go out there and play the position and be the quarterback. I've used multiple quarterbacks for situational things, and because guys deserve to play at that position. I've coached some good players, starters and backups. As far as the offense goes, again, we're in that part of camp right now where it's a lot of the base. It's repeating a lot of the base, and the run game, the protections, the pass game. It's really a lot of the things right now that are our base that we can build from and add on to moving forward. But the most important thing, not so much scheme wise, is the fundamentals of those guys in those positions. We just talked about the O-line. And part of that is our assignment, and part of that is making sure that, when we know our assignment, we don't miss it, and we're able to execute it, and we can go out there and just, play the basic fundamentals of the game at a high level.
All right, so interesting comments here from Harsin. He would go on to say, the receivers have been playing well, and obviously that's going to help out Bo Nix, TJ Finley, whoever it is, a quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. But I was kind of expecting him to come out here and kind of say, this is Bo's team, if that was the case. And he didn't say that. So, I don't know. I don't know how much you read into, again, first scrimmage, but Bo Nix was there in the spring. TJ Finley wasn't. I think most of us assume that Bo Nix was running away with this thing, but that may not be the case. And that is something to monitor here at Auburn, because if Bo Nix, for all his talent, if he cannot put it together or doesn't fit quite in this offense, it truly wouldn't be a stunner, I don't think, if TJ Finley won this job. Not saying that's going to happen. It would be a surprise, but it just would not stun me because we all know TJ Finley. I know he was inconsistent as well last year as a true freshman for LSU, but he certainly had some highlights of his own. All right, so staying in the state of Alabama, let's kick it down next to Tuscaloosa, where Alabama held their first scrimmage of training camp here. And from what I understand, Bryce Young had 3 touchdowns. And that is something that Nick Saban didn't give away the individual stats, but he was asked about Bryce Young and how the quarterbacks looked. And, he seemed very impressed with his new quarterback.
Yeah, Coach, just what did you see from the quarterbacks today, especially Bryce, with him getting an opportunity to lead that first team?
I think Bryce did a good job today. I think we, have to play well around Bryce. At times today, I didn't think, maybe we did as good a job of that as we need to. It's all 11 guys. It's the offensive line, it's the receivers, it's all 11 guys, so that he'll have, more opportunities to make plays. But I think when he had opportunities today, he did a really good job. So, I was pleased with his performance. I'm sure if you ask him, he'll be the first one to say, he's looking forward to working to, try to improve and, improve the production overall in terms of our execution on offense. And that's what's going to make us better.
All right. And then the other thing here, Saban was asked about, he kind of, he starts out like he hated the question, but then he gets into some really good stuff here about development and how young players, every player is different. And if you don't listen to Nick Saban when he opens up and speaks upon stuff like development and getting the best out of his players, then I don't know who in the hell you're going to listen to, because there's no one better to do it. So let's kick it over to Nick Saban, asked about the young players that are standing out and how the development's going this season. And he kind of took it in his own direction here, but I just thought these were some really interesting comments here from Coach Saban.
Coach, you said some of the young guys were able to make some plays today. Maybe who were some of those guys? And then how much do you think having a relatively normal spring, summer, and fall compared to 2020 is going to help some of those freshmen be able to make an impact early?
Well, I can't really answer that. It's kind of a hypothetical question. So, last year we played pretty well relative to COVID. So I can't say that it was a disadvantage for our development. And we did have like 3 guys, start on defense in some role or capacity, as freshmen. And I think it was a disadvantage to the defense because you couldn't do anything against each other for a long time in the summer. That hasn't been the case, this year. So I think that's been helpful to all the players, but especially to the defensive players. And I do think we have some talented guys on offense that are young players, and it's going to be really interesting to see how those guys develop. Everybody develops at a little different, level and time. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And I'm not going to sit here and make predictions about anybody or put any expectations on anybody right now. We're just really encouraged with, our young receiver core. We're encouraged with a couple of the young DBs. We're encouraged by a lot of the young players that we have, and we want to just keep working with them and see how they progress.
All right, so he's keeping us in the dark about who he's referencing here, but I think it's safe to assume maybe some of these receivers he's referencing and maybe some defensive backs here that Alabama's got on their roster looking to compete for playing time this year. And, of course, Bryce Young, in a roundabout way, he's probably talking about him as well. So I just thought those were the highlights of Nick Saban's most recent press conference here. All right, final team to hit on here. Let's jump on down to Gainesville, where Dan Mullen met with the media here on Monday. And, man alive, he was asked time and time again about old Emory Jones. The Gators just had their first scrimmage of training camp, and from what I understand, information has been tough to get down there. They've closed everything off. No practices, no scrimmages, nothing. There's no media access. There's no fan access. There's no I don't even know if they're letting former players in there right now. So, like I said, information tough to come by, but apparently the defense won the day here in the first scrimmage. And I don't necessarily know if that is why so many questions were asked of Dan, of Emory Jones, and how he's looking. I'm not saying that's an indictment on Emory Jones, but, I have been saying all off season, look for this defense to get much better under, I know Todd Grantham, third and Grantham, we can all make the jokes, but they've got all the talent in the world to be a much improved defense. Hell, they had talent last year. They just didn't manage to put it together. So Todd Grantham's feet to the fire, no doubt. He's got the talent. I think the Gators are going to be much improved, and that certainly seems to be the theme here of Gators camp. And maybe that's why Dan Mullen was seemingly asked 5, 6, 7 Emory Jones questions, but he's all over the map. And let's kick it over to Dan Mullen talking about his quarterback, Emory Jones.
Okay, sure. Well, then, Emory, do you notice a difference in the timing with him and receivers? Speaking of him this offseason, since spring to now, it sounds like they put in a lot of work. Like, multiple days a week and nights and all this stuff.
I do. I think you see the things with that those guys and the timing they have, the work they put in. Emory's obviously, one of the things we're always on him is consistency of performance, but you also have to play to his strengths, and one of the
back to the timing stuff you've noticed.
I think one of the big things with Emory is it is, and I think he's going to make some explosive plays out there, and you want kind of consistency and efficiency all the time. And that might not be his game every play. He's going to miss some things here and there, but he's going to make some explosive things on the other side of it, if that makes sense. All of a sudden you're like, boy, we got to hit that 90% of the time, and he might be in the 80% of the times hitting something. But there's other things he can do that is so electric and that he can create. That you don't want to kind of box him in. You want to let him play to his strengths. Obviously, I think his timing with the guys have got better. His control and understanding of the offense, his reads, I think, have gotten much better of where he's going with the ball. And then his ability to create and make plays is pretty special.
Dan, with Felipe Franks, your thing with him was kind of not just making the spectacular play, making the unspectacular play.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just heard what you said with Emory and not wanting to kind of box him in. How do you kind of balance that? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I think it's playing to the strengths because you still have to make the unspectacular plays. You still have to manage the offense, and take what they give you, if you will, and so that gets into making the simple plays on a consistent basis. And that's how that works. And so your quarterbacks always have to do that. Guys sit there and say, okay, hey, I want to just, I'm going to launch the ball deep every single play. Well, then if you're giving you triple coverage, you better be able to check the ball down as well. And so I think that's part of it, of being able to make sure that's more managing the offense in that way. And a guy like Emory, the same way, he's got to do a good job managing the offense. And, you're going to miss on one or two things here or there to take some other things. It's all playing to his strengths. I think he's a very different quarterback than the guy we had last year. I mean, extremely different. Does some things way better, some things not as good. And our job as coaches to make sure we're putting him in position to do the things that he does well.
Again, back to Emory real quick. We all know he can run and throw, but how far has he come and how much more does he have to grow to get to maybe Kyle Trask level in terms of pre-snap reading and getting through his progressions?
Yeah,
Kyle did really well.
Yeah, hard to compare those two because we're going to give him some more leeway. You know what I mean? There's times I don't want him to get through the progression. I'm on him. A lot of times in camp, you have that fine line where you're like, hey, make sure you're going to stand in the pocket. You're not allowed to run, go through the progression. Then you got to flip it back the other way for him, which is like, go, bro. If they're in this coverage and they give you a lane, you're going to run until till you get to the band. And, and so he, there's that aspect to it, but I think he does. You go through the scrimmage last night, I thought his decision-making was really good. I think he had made some really good decisions.
Is that in some regards tougher as an offensive coach to coach, like the decision-making part? No,
I think I think you get caught up. You get caught up with players when you coach somebody. And then you expect guys to be, you're just going to coach him to be like this guy. And I go back to, I remember that going back to coaching Alex Smith. I'm a young coach coaching Alex Smith. Here I am. I coach the number 1 pick in the draft. And, you're thinking, hey, I must be this unbelievable, spectacular coach. I coach this guy to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And so the next guy comes along, I'm just going to coach him the same way, and he'll be the number 1 pick in the draft. And no, it doesn't work that way. It is, you really spend time of not, I don't need Emory to ever be like Kyle. I need Emory to be like Emory. And my job is to get the best Emory I can get. Kind of like last year, we needed Kyle to become the best Kyle he could be, and Felipe to be the best Felipe he could be. And, you go back through the years that way. And So I think you learned that as you go along as a coach, and as a young coach, that was a big learning step for me. I went from Alex Smith to Chris Leach, and very different talent sets. And I had to coach, and all of a sudden you think, okay, well, what worked for one doesn't work for the other, and then you got to better learn that early on as a coach, that you got to not only do what the individual does well, but coach to the style of the individual to make him learn the best as possible and how he learns.
Emory, best Emory. You said best Emory he can be. What does that look like in your mind?
A guy that's going to go out there and lead the offense, manage the offense, make good decisions when we need him to make a good decision, and find the balance between when it is to make the average play and when it is to go let your talents do something spectacular, and find the balance between those two.
So some really interesting comments there. I mean, these are different than his SEC Media Days comments, to be sure, where he pumped up Jones every opportunity he could get. Now he's talking about the hits and the misses that are natural, which maybe he's just being realistic about how Jones is going to perform. I don't know, but that's something to file away in the back of your head. I mean, Florida has got Alabama week 3 of the season. That's one that I've been circling Alabama on upset alert. So if Emory Jones is not capable passer, certainly that's not going to be the case. So he's not going to have a ton of time to figure things out before he's got the toughest test of his career, week 3 in the swamp. But again, if the Emory Jones shows up that Dan Mullen was talking up at SEC Media Days, the Gators are going to be just fine. Now, the other things that Dan Mullen hit on, I thought this was pretty interesting. Justin Shorter, of course, who made his debut last season for the Gators after transferring in from Penn State, former 5-star recruit. His time to shine right here, time to step up. And more importantly here, again, we give Dan Mullen all the credit in the world on this show for knowing his talent, getting the most out of it. And that is something that he hits on here with the balanced attack coming back to Gainesville and how that is going to keep defenses on their toes this season.
One specific person question then, though. Based on just pure history, it seems like Justin Shorter would be in line to sort of take the next big step in the receiver unit. What have you seen from him? This is a former 5-star, a big guy. Does he kind of understand this is his year?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen from him, and if you ask most of the people on our team and even the coaching staff, is his work ethic of how he comes to work every single day. From the minute he's at the start of practice till the end, he is grinding, giving you everything that he has. And the great thing of that is you see it in the results. I think he's playing at a much, much higher level than he did last year, much more consistent level, much bigger playmaker level than he did last year. And, it's not a surprise with how hard he works day in and day out that you see that improvement.
Dan, a question about the offense and a little bit about the nuances. I know you aren't going to explain the whole thing, but as we understand that you've got a good bit of depth, it looks like, with 5 running backs and, a nice group of wide receivers, tight ends, et cetera, quarterback good. It appears as though, without giving us a playbook, that you're going to be able to be more multiple, you'll be able to be more balanced. Can you explain to me exactly what that does to a defense when you put the pressure on the linebackers and corners with the RPOs? And Emory is so talented at both. So this will be a different kind of offense? How?
Well, it is, because you're looking at the strengths of the players right now. If you go to last year's offense, hey, you had a drop back quarterback that was extremely accurate. You had some talented receivers that you could spread the field, and they could win one-on-one. So the defense at that point, you go watch, you're seeing a lot of drop 8 in coverage, 3-man rush. Of just saying, hey, if we rush, if we create one-on-ones, this guy's going to take advantage of those one-on-ones that are out there. This year's team, as you said, we're trying to find where our depth comes in, and have a couple running backs that have shown they're going to be ready to play. We have both quarterbacks have shown they're ready to go play. Building up that number of receivers, that there's a group that we feel comfortable with and a group that are still right on the edge. Same at tight end. The two we feel pretty comfortable with, a couple on the edge. in offensive line. Probably 6'7", 7-ish we're getting comfortable with, and a couple more right on the edge, and to get it there. But what you do is it's just gonna change. You're gonna be a different scheme, and so you have different guys, different playmakers. You're gonna put guys in different position that are out there on the field. Obviously, the threat of quarterback run, whether it be a design quarterback run, whether it be an option run, or his ability to go scramble, puts a lot of difference in a different type of pressure on the defense. And as you put on different personnel groupings. Last year that you looked at the tight end position, and Kyle Pitts was a guy that, we'd move around to play a lot of different positions on the field. This year the guys that are probably the multi-position guys are and Kadarius Toney. Those are guys that they run. Is he playing running back on this play? Tight end, slot, motion them into the backfield, receiver. Where are they playing? This year, but last year, and you had all those, but you always knew exactly where the quarterback was going to be. Okay, this year you have, maybe the running backs are going to be guys with a little bit more multiple abilities to do different things on the field with the skill set that way, and certainly the quarterback. You got to figure out, you better know where the quarterback is. Last year you always knew exactly where he would be every play. This year you have no idea where he's going to be, and you better account for him. So it just puts a totally different pressure on the defense.
All right, so that's the game plan apparently, but of course no one's seen it. No one really knows if that truly is the game plan. It would be wild if I could see Dan Mullen just, offering up these answers, knowing that people are, we're just throwing darts against the wall here with very little information. But wouldn't it be wild if he was just all lulling us to sleep with these comments here, and Florida goes, all out passing game like they did last year. Who knows? Maybe they will. Or all out running game, triple option, wing T. Of course, that's not going to happen, but it'd be pretty wild, wouldn't it? All right, guys. So, hey, that's all I've got on this episode. Just really wanted to recap all these coach clips because they were starting to stack up. Some of these were from over the weekend as well, and some of them were from Monday. So I just really wanted to wrap all these up. But Cousin Shane scheduled to be back on the next one. He's kind of going three days a week this season is kind of what we've settled on. So if you're wondering why he's on again, off again. He's a busy working man. He's trying to set up that damn camera. If I asked him to come on 5 days a week, I don't think he would be able to do it. So I'll take 100% of Shane 3 times a week. Then I will, 60% of Shane 5 times a week. I think that math adds up. I don't know. I'll have to double check it. But hey, that's all I got on this one. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. Catch you on the next one.